With all of the great weapons the medium class has in Season 8, it can be really hard to decide which one is the best. There are a lot of great tier list videos out there that walk you through which weapons align to each tier across S, A, B, C, and D. But most of the tier lists that I've seen are very opinion based. They are that player, that content creator's specific beliefs on how they feel the gun is performing. And I haven't seen myself anybody break down the objective view of what is actually the strongest weapon in the game. This video is aimed at pulling that apart, showing you the actual details that will help you understand the true strongest weapon for the medium class currently. And the way I'm going to achieve this and show you as we go is I'm going to measure the TTK, the time to kill or time to eliminate, for every weapon across all three of the classes. So the measurements today are going to look at how quick can you eliminate a light with just headshots and just body shots, same for medium and same for heavy. All of those values are going to be tracked in this video as we go and then stored in an Excel sheet so that we can actually look into which weapon is the best through the actual tangible and objective data. If I were to just do a tier list without looking at the TTK, I would give you what my bias is, what my subjective point of view is, and that might not actually fit the way that you play the game or help you become the best contestant you can be. But if I can give you the objective data, the tangible details as to which weapons are truly performing the best across all dimensions, you can take that information and use it to inform your playstyle on what makes sense for you. Today, the goal is to remove myself, the human being that's biased on weapons and how they play, from the equation to give you, the viewer and the contestant in the arena, the best objectively driven tier list you can have for the medium class. There is no emotion built into this. It is strictly by the numbers, and by the time that we are done, we will be able to determine which weapon is truly the best through gathering the data along the way. So let's take a look at how TTK was measured so y'all understand how I did my calculations and how these were measured together. First, I took every weapon into the practice range and I shot all of the dummies, light, medium, and heavy. I focused on just headshots and just body shots. And then I took those videos and dropped it into my editor. And I chopped up the different videos into segments of just the damage being applied to each dummy in each of those dimensions. Like you can see right now, I'm scrolling through the headshots on the medium. And now I'm jumping over to the body shots. I started the timer once I saw the hit thwack, the hit indicator pop up, and then I stopped the timer 1 frame after the hit indicator for the elim shows. This allowed me to get an actual time for how long it took to eliminate that enemy for that specific focus. And by dropping that time onto each of those clips, it then allowed me to ensure that I had a tangible measurement for how long it took to eliminate for headshots on a medium or for body shots on a medium. So now here you can see on that last frame, it shows me the exact time it takes to eliminate a medium with only headshots at 0.801. And then I do the same thing for the body shots and I pull that in and I take a screenshot and I apply it. So when I play it back, you see the freeze frame, it shows you exactly how much time and then it moves on. Once I got the values for those, I then opened up my Excel and I created my tier list. So you can see the tier list here. And I started to add in all the different values for all of the different weapons. And then from here, we can actually build out how strong each weapon is and sort it by the tier. So right now, this is just alphabetical in order. It's not actually showing which one's the strongest. It's just straight up alphabetical. And you can see I sorted the 12 different weapons across the different tiers by S, A, B, C, and D, putting only 2 in the S class, 6 in the A and B class, and then 4 in the C and D class, making sure it's evenly distributed. So see, I dropped those numbers in, and then I rinsed and repeat for all of the weapons. So let's go ahead and start running through it. The P90 being new to this season, it comes in extremely hot, and I think that's a really good thing. Looking at past seasons, it was all too often that new weapons would be brought in, and then nobody would use them because they weren't strong enough. I'm really happy to see how strong the P90 is and the value that it has for the team player. As you watch it just absolutely shred through these dummies, it's very easy to tell how strong this weapon is just from watching the TTK. So let's plug in those numbers and then move into the actual gameplay examples. In my experience, the P90 is kind of insane. It does everything well with the exception of range, and in the short to mid range, you're really not going to find any weapon on the medium class that outclasses it. It has such a deep clip with 50 total rounds, the highest fire rate of all the medium weapons, and its reload speed is really quick. It just gives you so much value, and even if you're not getting the eliminations, you're applying so much damage to an enemy that it allows your team an easy cleanup with just a few rounds from whatever weapon they're using. If you want to be effective with the P90, you need to try and stay in that medium range. You can play the short range, but things like the DB, charge and slams from an actual enemy, and other better close range weapons will outclass the P90, but in the medium range, you really can't find a better option on the medium class. It has a very decent fall off range, not taking a whole lot of hits to its actual damage output until you're in that long range engagement. Somewhere like 30 meters plus or so, you'll start to see a little bit of that fall off. In the long range engagements, which you can see here, it really doesn't do a whole lot. You can see that damage fall off kind of hitting a little bit, and you can see it's just not as accurate, not doing as much damage when you're in that long range. So you really want to try and keep yourself in closer range engagements. Medium's totally fine, close range is fine. There are a lot of different ways you can use it. I've found a lot of value using it with DMAT, and I personally love running frags. Even though you only get the 140 damage that you get from landing a frag onto somebody is a phenomenal amount of damage. It chunks everybody down, and it allows the P90 a really easy way to clean up elends. Let's take a look at the Famas. If you've been paying attention at all, you know a lot of the pro players right now are picking and pushing the Famas as being the meta for medium. When I use the Famas, I don't necessarily align with what the pro players are saying, but I will admit I use my Famas significantly differently than they do, and it's totally possible the skill gap between me and what pro players are doing is the reason that they see something that I don't. Don't get me wrong, I love the Famas. It's a great assault rifle. It also brings me back to the days of Halo 2. It being a burst rifle definitely feels great to use. And when you're hitting your shots, it shreds through enemies extremely well. Similar to the 93R, if you're able to hit headshots with the burst from the Famas, it will delete your targets in an instant. No questions asked, its time to kill for headshots is extremely quick. The challenge that you have with the Famas though is that because it is a 3-round burst and because it starts its recoil on that first round of the 3-round burst, over longer periods of distance, your bullets will spread like the Shack 50 on heavy, not as substantial in terms of the way that it forks out to the left right on the Shack, but when the Famas bucks up, all of your bullets end up going up with that recoil. So when you're shooting at longer ranges, you might be getting hit markers, but what you're actually hitting is 1 to 2 bullets out of that 3-round burst. It is a balance to figure out the right range for the Famas, but in my experience so far, it's that medium to short range, which allows you to be extra effective with it. Moving on to the CL40. The CL40 is the first weapon in our list that does not have a headshot multiplier. So for the intent of our testing today, we're only going to focus on the body shot damage for the time calculations for time to kill. And I'll explain a little bit more later once we get deep into the Excel sheet exactly how we change those calculations around to ensure that they're balanced with the other weapons. But for now, we just put it under body shots and we move on. In experience for actual games, I have found the CL40 to be extremely strong as long as you're capable of landing the grenade at the base of the player you're shooting at. It has a pretty quick fall off range from that center area where your damage will not do nearly as much once you're about 2 to 3 feet away from your actual target. But if you can get a couple of targets grouped up and you can get grenades shot down at their feet, you will do massive amounts of damage to both targets at the same time. That is the benefit of the CL40, especially for grouped enemies, is that it does splash damage, ensuring that everybody takes basically an equal amount of damage based on their proximity to where that CL40 is. The CL40 also demands attention. The noise that it makes and the chaos that it creates can often leave teams panicking, and if you don't find a way to lock a CL40 down, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Thankfully, I got a couple of ways to help you with that. The first is putting a dome shield over the top of them, cause them to self-eliminate. Another way that I like dealing with CL40s on my heavy was just mesh shielding towards them. Make sure that you mesh shield close enough and they will do their own self-damage. Or a way that I learned just today is that if you do a sword lunge into a CL40 and they happen to shoot you with their own explosive, you will get yourself eliminated. A pretty smart counter for light sword players. Let's take a look at the R.357 Revolver, my personal favorite on the medium class. This thing hits like a truck when you hit your headshots. It's not as strong to the body, but one headshot is enough to do so much damage. As you notice, it 2-taps a medium with headshots. It has a very fast fire rate. It reloads all 6 bullets of its cylinder at the same time, and that reload speed is actually really quick as well. The revolver allows you to do a lot with just a little, but it does require that you hit your shots. The unique aspect of using the revolver is that when you ADS in with it, the bullet that you fire will 100% of the time go to where your reticle is. There is no bloom, there is no dispersion when you're firing with ADS. And I like that fact because being a precision player, it means that 100% of the time, if I'm hitting my shots, then I'm actually hitting my shots. And if I'm missing my shots, then it's 100% on me. And I have to lock in better to make sure that I'm hitting. It's not some weird bloom, it's not some recoil. It gives me 100% consistency in what it's doing, and I love that aspect. Its range is decent, though once it starts to fall off, it will fall off significantly hard. Once it does fall off, you can really only do chip damage at range, but it still shouldn't be slept on. You can still do a lot of damage, you just have to make sure you're hitting more shots out of the cylinder. This thing is a menace when it comes to lights, and I've actually found a lot of success in beating double barrel players up close using the revolver. One headshot does 147 damage or so, meaning that any light is left with very little HP and will almost in all cases run away, or you can just easily body shot them to finish it up. Again, I'm a big believer that running things with frags, especially a high impact single shot weapon, is the best way to go. If your frag does 140 damage and your headshot with the revolver does 147, hitting one headshot on a heavy and landing a frag is going to do 287 damage to that heavy in a second. Less than a second, like a quarter of a second. The revolver is extremely good. It definitely will struggle at deleting mesh shields, dome shields, getting through goo. It uses more of its actual cylinder, the more of its actual 6 rounds than other weapons. But outside of that, the revolver is reliable, and as long as you can hit your shots, it will not do you wrong. Let's look at the CB01 repeater. First, when you're watching the timings here, notice that each 2-shot, the headshots and the body shots to the light, come in at different times, and then as well for the mediums headshots. After this, they also come at a different time. This can be from a number of things, between network latency to my own slower pull on the trigger. So when I drop the data into the Excel sheet, I normalize the 3 that we just saw that have this different values all to the same number. That way it is uniformed across the board. The 2 shots that are applied to the light's head, body, and the medium's headshots will be universal the same, because they should be based on the data that's provided. So those are normalized there. Now looking at the actual gameplay for the CB01 repeater, you want to try and use it at range. It is a ranged weapon. It does the best at range, but it also has a very unique aspect that not other guns have. When you get to an empty magazine like you see here, you have a speed reloader that comes in to input 5 total bullets into the weapon, and then you have to reload the remaining 3 out of the total 8 by hand individually. The other aspect that's unique with the repeater is that you can reload your rounds while you're ADS'd in, allowing you to keep your eyes on the target while also restoring your ammunition. It is a super cool trait for the weapon to have and makes it feel a lot more fluid when you're in those longer range gunfights. The repeater hits extremely strong, deleting a lot of targets this season in just a couple of shots. Similar to the revolver, it has the unique aspect that the bullet, when you're ADS'd, will 100% go to where your reticle is pointed. So any shots that you're missing are definitely on you, and all the shots that you're hitting are also on you. This weapon is very, very challenging to use up close, but you can do that. But I recommend staying in that medium to long range and providing cover to your teams from afar. If you get yourself caught in a short range engagement, do your best to hit your shots and hope for the best, but just know you are at a significant disadvantage against other weapons that are built to be in those close range fights. Let's look at the Pike. The Pike, which was dominant last season for its ability to delete lights in just 3 taps to the body, has been nerfed a little bit this season to make it a lot less powerful overall. It's a little bit less accurate from the hip as well, but overall its power has been brought back down. But so far, in my experience and in my games, I'm not seeing that significant of a difference. Now, I know there are a lot of people that complained about the fact that you can no longer 3-shot a light to the body, but the only difference to how this season works versus last season is you have to just hit a single headshot on the light, and then you can again 3-shot them totally with 2 additional shots to the body. So while I know a lot of players struggled with adapting to that, simply just focus on hitting your headshots a little bit more, and this weapon is still just as powerful as it was last season, still just as valuable as it was for your team, and still has a lot of versatility in the way that it's used. Just like the revolver and the repeater, as you're scoped in, your bullets are going to go exactly where you point them, which is a huge value for a single shot weapon like this. The difference for the Pike, though, is while it is the strongest in the longer range engagements, it is not to be slept on in the closer to medium ranges either. Its high rate of fire and ability to do damage quickly is what makes it a valuable and viable in those shorter range engagements that the CB01 will actually struggle in. The Pike has also received a new scope this season, the Scout, which is actually my new favorite for the weapon. If you played with the Pike at all with the original sight that it has on it, it can be a little challenging to know if you're going to hit your shots or not when you're lining up the top of the reticle to where a player is. There was a little bit of an inconsistency to it, and with the new scope, I'm finding that that is totally gone. I'm feeling very confident with that new scope that every shot that I have on target is going to land, and it's allowed me to be a lot more comfortable with the weapon itself. Moving away from the single shot weapons now, let's look at the shotguns for the medium class. The first up is the Cerberus. With no headshot bonus, we're only going to look at the body shots. For the heavy, if you try and do 3 quick shots, it will actually not eliminate fully. So I pause a little bit here to allow the fire to tick through. So notice here I do 2 quick shots and then let the burn damage go a little bit and then add that 3rd shot to get the elimination. This was the fastest I could get the heavy eliminated, so let's go with those added to the sheet and then look at the actual gameplay. With a nerf this season, the once dominant Cerberus that was kind of the double barrel for medium is no longer as strong, but that doesn't mean that it's not valuable in the current sandbox. You definitely have to play a lot more up close and personal, and you definitely have to play a bit more risky, but it is super powerful when you get those shots to land and you get that fire to tick. The other unique aspect of the Cerberus is that it can actually disperse gas with its shots, so you just have to point at the core of where that gas is coming from and it will actually cause it to go away, puts it out for you. In combat, what you want to try and do is hit a target and then pace your shot on the 2nd shot, because the fire damage doesn't stack. If the fire damage ticks 5 total times, you want to try and let it tick 2 to 3 times before you're shooting again to fully maximize the amount of damage that's being applied to your target. If you shoot too quickly, you're only getting a single fire damage burn in between those shots, and you're not maximizing the value of what the weapon can truly do. The key is learning to play with that slower overall pace. in between your shots for the people that you're playing against, because that fire damage will tick out and it will deal enough damage to eliminate targets, and your goal is to just stay safe when they're on fire. This will allow you to keep yourself safe, but then also allows you to maximize the amount of damage that you're doing before you come back in for another shot. This will also cause a lot of players to panic because they have that fire effect on them that they can't put out. Keep in mind though, that much like a flamethrower's fire, if you're standing in smoke, that fire will not actually become applied. Let's take a look at the model, which was once a meta choice for the medium class. It has been since nerfed out of existence, and they're slowly trying to bring it back in by giving it a 7th total round this season. The model has one of the more unique animations in the game, which will allow you to reload quicker when you're fully emptied. But if you try and reload while you still have cartridges in the gun, it causes the weapon to have to pop out one of the shells before reloading the additional ones, so you have a bit of a delay on the total reload itself. In combat, you want to play up close and personal just like the Cerberus, and you want to try and keep moving as best you can. The reload time is not quick, and getting caught out while reloading definitely puts you at a big risk. I have found DMAT to be a really good pairing in terms of specializations because it allows you to get into and out of fights really quick. Keep in mind as well, there's a pump animation cancel. If you try and melee in between your pump of the shotgun, you will be stalled on the return out of that melee to firing your next shot. So keep that in mind while you're using that weapon. Let's take a look at the FCAR. The FCAR is one of the OG weapons in the game. This was the most dominant weapon in Season 1 for the medium class, and it wasn't even close in terms of power. Like, this weapon ran the arena for so long. Back then, you would pair it with recon senses, and you'd be able to see where teams were coming from across the map, and there was no stronger combo. I am not ashamed, maybe a little bit of ashamed to admit, I was one of the original OG recon sense FCAR abusers. It was a powerful, powerful combo, and it became a big crutch for me. Thankfully, I've grown out of that phase, and now I can use the FCAR without it being a crutch. And in the current sandbox, I've been surprised at just how well it actually does. I have not used the FCAR for quite some time because of all the new weapons that have been added, but coming back to this felt like I was coming back home in a way, and everything felt really good when I was using it. It is a really great all-around weapon. It is not the best at the longest ranges, and is not necessarily the best at the shortest ranges, but it is actually viable in both of those as long as you're able to keep your shots on target and you're able to keep yourself safe from an enemy approaching. The FCAR is a part of a handful of weapons in the game which actually doesn't have a difference in the reload time between having bullets left in the magazine or not. Some weapons like the Shack on heavy will take much longer if you empty the magazine to 0 versus if you were to reload with the bullets still left. The FCAR has no impact whether you're fully empty or not. Your reload time is identical between the two. That is a big valuable add for this weapon because it means you don't have to worry about watching your ammunition in terms of that reload time or having to balance that aspect of it. Taking a look at another staple of the medium class, the AKM. AK is Bay, at least it was back in Season 3 for me. Formerly, it had a 36 round clip that was reduced to 32 somewhere around the Season 4 time frame, but this weapon is still just as good as it was back then, and I think it actually might be a little bit slept on in the current sandbox. It has a pretty consistent recoil that can be easily learned and understood, and once you get your shots locked onto the target, it will chip through enemies at a pretty quick pace. The AK is one of the few weapons in the game that is actually really good at shredding through shields. It was one of the best in Season 3 for getting through the mesh shield era, and it is still very good in that aspect today. Much more reliable than the FCAR, the Revolver, or any of the other powerful weapons on medium for getting through defenses. It also joins the FCAR in being one of the few weapons in the game that has no difference between a fully empty reload and a reload with bullets still left in the magazine. You can go through your entire clip and reload at the same speed if you were to reload with a bullet still remaining. The AKM also has a really good hip fire and is really accurate from the hip. It is all around a great weapon for mediums, doing decent at range, but it does thrive more in the medium to short range engagements. If you can learn to control the recoil though, this thing is not to be slept on at range because it does do great damage at longer distances, but you have to make sure you're hitting your shots. Moving on to dual blades for the medium class. Also, no headshot multiplier for these, so we'll only be tracking the body shot time to kill. I've really never used dual blades up until Season 8, but I have seen them a lot throughout my games as being something that is very frustrating to deal with in a good player's hands. I was actually surprised at how fun these weapons were once I gave them a shot, and I actually went on to win a full World Tour tournament using only dual blades. So these are actually much more viable than I think a lot of players give credit to, but it does require you to use them in the right way, and it does require you to be playing with your team to be effective with them. The deflect that you get is phenomenal. It will deflect a lot of the damage that you're taking and return the bullets back towards the sender, and will keep you safe. But it is only from the front direction that deflect works. So if you're getting shot from the sides, you will not deflect anything. You will take full damage. That's why you need to make sure you're playing with your team so you can ensure that you're not getting shot from those angles that your deflect doesn't protect you from. But if you get up close into an enemy's face, there is very little they can do to the high damage the dual blades actually deliver. And then finally, the Riot Shield. We're here, the final weapon of the medium class, the last set of TTKs to measure, and the last set of gameplay to look at before we reveal the true winner of Season 8. And we get to look at my favorite part of this process, the actual data for the weapons. The Riot Shield, as we've seen a lot on Reddit, if you've been paying attention, has a pretty insane hitbox. It can block a lot of bullets just by running straight towards the enemy and tilting a little bit to the left because of where that Riot Shield is. It's a very strong weapon, surprisingly. It will delete players really quick if you can get in close, and it does phenomenal in those situations where you're able to get up close and personal. You can do a full deflect by bringing up the Riot Shield to guard, but keep in mind that your feet are exposed here, so players that are aware of this aspect won't let you just regen for free like you're seeing here. They should be focusing on shooting the feet because the feet are exposed and you can actually eliminate a Riot Shield in their guard just by shooting at the feet. Outside of that, you want to try and get in close, obviously, with the Riot Shield, and you also want to make sure that you're using that protection whenever you get into danger. And just so that everybody can see here, this is what I mean by shooting the feet. This is the other side. Watch how the Riot Shield goes into the guard, and then the feet are totally exposed, so you can eliminate that way. And then another tip is if you have a Riot Shield that's up close and personal with you, rotate around to their right side, your left side, because that Riot Shield is on their left side. So if you're rotating around in front of them on that side, you will ensure that you're not having your shots blocked by the Riot Shield. Now we're here, the final breakdown of how all the weapons performed and the final ratings for the weapons for the medium class. Now we have all of this data on screen, and it's very, very complicated in the way that it's presented. But what I want to do first before we reveal the final list is show you why using Excel is the best way to do this and why using TTK is the best way to do this. Now that we have everything arranged and I have all of my columns with data, if I want to know which weapon works the best against lights for headshots, I can sort the list by the smallest value first, and now we can see the tier breakdown of which weapons actually are the best against lights for headshots. You can do the same thing for the body shots, and notice how things start to update as we go. So the interesting thing is you can see that while one weapon might be the best, like the Famas was for headshots, now for body shots, it's way down in B tier. So as you go through this, you'll notice that these weapons like to bounce around a little bit, and it will get a little bit interesting as we kind of go through and figure this out. But so this is only so valuable, right? Like obviously we need a better way to measure this. And so there is a way to do that. But let's say that we want to really know what is the best weapon overall for the medium. Obviously, we can't just look at one of these dimensions. We have to look at it from a bigger picture. So, what we can do is we can take the averages across these dimensions of the weapons to understand exactly how well they do. So, let's walk through what that ends up looking like. So, you can see up here, what I do is I take the headshots for light, for medium, and for heavy, and I get the average. And then I have a little function here, really simple function that just says if the cell is an error, return what is to the right. And so what is to the right over here is what the average for the body shot is. And so what this function is actually doing for us is that when we get to these weapons that do not have a headshot multiplier, and when we try and average a 0 value, the math says, I can't average against 0. So then what I do is I end up returning what the body shots are. That way we have the average of what it takes either way for you to use that weapon. I've already gone through and put these all in. And so now what we have here are the actual averages for headshots and body shots. And then finally, from here to understand on average across all of your games, what is the actual middle value between those two? This is going to be what your average essential time to eliminate is going to be for those weapons across all different classes. We can now finally determine which weapon is truly S tier and which is on the bottom of the list. So here we go. Without further ado, this is your tangible tier list for the medium class. You cannot argue with this list. It is the true North Star of what is the strongest weapon in the game for medium for Season 8. You cannot question it because it is strictly by the data. It is objective. It is not my own opinion. It is truly how the weapons are performing. And that's why I love this approach so much, because there is no way that it can be misunderstood. It is the true way the weapons are performing. Without any surprise, I think, from all of us here, the P90 taking the #1 spot, being the best overall for the medium class. I will actually not be surprised if I wake up tomorrow morning and Embark has nerfed this with the latest update and ruined my entire tier rating. But it's fine. This is good for now. We'll keep moving. The Revolver, again, I think is being slept on, and I don't need to say I think, I know that it is, because it is in the S tier with the P90. It is right up there keeping pace. Keep in mind, though, for the Revolver, you definitely have to be hitting your headshots, because the difference between headshot elimination time and body shot elimination time is pretty high. So make sure you're mixing those headshots in. Surprisingly for me, the AKM coming in at the 3rd place and the FCAR coming in at the 4th place, outpacing the Famas. The Famas, again, I need to stress, this is the weapon the pro players have been pushing, is the S tier medium weapon for the class. And I'm not sure how they've arrived at that conclusion, but keep in mind, pro players have a completely different outlook on the game. They have completely different set of macros they focus on, and they might just value the headshot time more than the average time because they are not the average player and they are able to focus more on hitting those headshots. So it is possible that for them, the FAMAS might be higher up on the list, but overall, in terms of your efficacy across the weapons, FAMAS comes in at 5th. Moving down the list, I don't think there's any surprise, but the Pike, the CB1 repeater, and the Riot Shield all end up in the B tier here. The Pike coming in still pretty strong. And remember, this weapon took a nerf this season, so it still being a B tier weapon, in my opinion, speaks volumes to how strong it was last season. In the C tier, you have your dual blades and your Cerberus. And then the weapons that actually struggle the most, surprisingly to me, was the model and the CL40. This video has been a journey. It's been a lot of fun for me to put together. This is something that I really enjoy doing because I love data. Data always tells the truth. You can definitely misinterpret it, but for this video. I think it is the best way to do tier lists. It is the one that will give you, the user, the player, the contestant, at the other end of this video, the actual data you need to determine what is the right weapon for you. Now, keep in mind, what we're looking at right now is what, from an objective point of view, the best weapon is. But I'm going to go ahead and break that all apart because ultimately, if you're a player like me that isn't striving to become a professional player, isn't necessarily worried about being Ruby, then the best weapon is the one that you are most comfortable using and most effective with. While I know the P90 is a great gun, it is the best on the list. I play better using the revolver because it just works better for me and my play style. So in my own personal opinionated list, I would put the revolver on top because that's just what it is for me. So I would stress that while this is a great guide overall to show you which weapons are strong, don't let it take you away from trying out other weapons like the Cerberus, like the dual blades. Keep in mind, I said earlier, I won a tournament using dual blades in Season 8, strictly just dual blades. These weapons have value even if they're not necessarily top of the list. You just have to figure out how to uniquely use them within the final sandbox. And the beauty of the final sandbox is there's so many gadget combinations, there's so many specializations that in any which way you can combine those together to make something that's a C tier weapon, an S tier setup, just by learning how to play that unique way. If you happen to watch this far, watch this whole thing, I can't express how grateful I am for you. This effort to create content for this game has been an amazing journey for me, and it is truly a dream coming true. Every single day, I wake up and see the engagement that I'm getting from everybody and the value that people are getting from my content. I can't put it into words how much it means to me. And so, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for engaging, for doing all the things that you do to support me and my growth within this space. It is a dream coming true, and that dream would not be possible without all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.